Hey, what's up? Zach here, and today I've got the all-new Adidas Adizero Adios Pro 4. Let's get into them. And thanks to Adidas for sending me a pair of these over to sponsor this video. However, as always, all opinions on these, good, bad, and indifferent, are all mine. All right, so starting off in the uppers of the Adios Pro 4, now you see it says Light Lock on there, which is those stitched in bands that go from the distal end of the lace line all the way, basically to the heel counter. Then at the heel counter, this TPU winglet comes up over that stitched band. Now, that's supposed to give you a better lockdown, and then the tongue is actually tied into that light lock band. So that combined with what Adidas calls that sling launch and that padding in the heel counter really gives a better lockdown than the 3s. Heel slippage on these for me was pretty mild. I mean, I really did not feel it, especially when running, really whatsoever. Quite a bit of a difference from the 3s for me. Still not a ton of padding in the heel counter and ankle collar, but I think when you're tying down the lace line, all these lace eyelets are reinforced, you do get a runner's knot, as you should. It just feels like you're just a little bit more snug in the midfoot really of this shoe, and that's what kind of locks you down more. Now, the interesting thing is, it's kind of just the base of the upper. To me, it feels like a really soft bamboo sheet on foot. Look at it on the microscope, you can see it's kind of this chunky diamond weave, kind of on top of or superimposed on a very, very tight and small, but very chunky woven upper, and that weave goes all the way around the shoe. And so all these other accoutrements, yeah, they're nice and they do give you a nice little lockdown on there, but it's the entire bed of that diamond woven upper that's really doing, I think, the lion's share of the containment. The thing is, you look at it on the breathability test, they only heat up 91.4 degrees. That's just as good as every other super shoe with super wide open mesh where you can basically see your foot through. Look at it on the breathability mapping, it takes a second, but then fog really does start billowing out of the forefoot. It's interesting that Adidas went kind of the opposite direction of a lot of other super shoes in that they're using a super lightweight, real satiny feeling fabric, but they went with more of a tight weave in there and just more dialed in the material chemistry versus just making big open gaping holes in it. And I like that because number one, it's leaps and bounds more comfortable of an upper than just about every other super shoe I have tested, and gives a little bit better containment, even if it's just up in your head. Just kind of having that continuous upper around your foot with no big open gaping holes just kind of feels a little more containing, maybe a little bit more confidence inducing. And like I said, you're not sacrificing comfort and you're not sacrificing containment for all that breathability. If you look at these uppers on the upper durability test, 10-second tie grit sandpaper, not that you're gonna be taking these through thorn bushes anytime soon, but really, the burr does not get through this, which I thought was, honestly, I wasn't that surprised after looking at it on the microscope and seeing just how tough the upper really is. But also you do get a toenail guard on the inside, so in case you do have a little bit longer, more jagged toenails, you're not gonna be busting through this. But just the upper material itself also pretty darn durable to internal containment as well as internal trauma from either toenails or external trauma if you find yourself, for whatever reason, going through thick brush with these. I just wanna say one word about lace irritation on these. I know that there is a little bit of a foam pad here on the tongue, and that is nice. That definitely shields the most vulnerable part of your foot to lace irritation. But honestly, just how the laces lay on this really is what made this not really have much lace irritation at all for me. Like the rest of the uppers, surprisingly comfortable. All right, beginning in the midsole teardown, this is 2 slabs of Adidas Light Strike Pro, which is that thermoplastic polyester elastomer foam. And then you do get energy rods starting from the heel, going all the way into the forefoot. Those are molded, and these are carbon composite. They call these their energy rods 2.0, but it's carbon composite energy rods. And you actually do also have a little bit of a stabilizer here in the forefoot as well that goes horizontal across the forefoot just to give some more structure for really like hard pounding forefoot strikers. They do have a little bit of a rocker there in the forefoot. What I noticed is this rocker, it feels different than the Adios Pro 3. But what that shape in the forefoot does, it actually makes it feel like there's more foam in there than there is, which is really nice. It actually feels like a little bit more of a pogo stick under your foot, because especially if you're more of a distal midfoot to forefoot striker, that's right where you're gonna strike down. And it just, without having to bulk the shoe up or get past a certain stack, it really makes it so that you're kind of landing on a little bit more foam. You get a little bit more structure to the shoe, which is really nice. Look at this thing on the bounce height test. Got 45 centimeters in the rear foot, shocker, 45 in the forefoot, and that's pretty much to be expected with all that Light Strike Pro in there. Yeah, I mean, Light Strike Pro is super bouncy, it's bottom light, it feels great, but honestly, to me, the best part of the midsole on any of these Adidas shoes is the energy rods. They do a similar thing in the tennis category with the energy rods on the Cybersonic 2. And for their weight, for their profile, the fact you don't have to have this giant carbon fiber plate under you that could produce some irritation for some people. But then it can save weight because energy rods can be a little bit thicker. It just produces so much snap, so much pop, especially when you're getting up into higher mileage and especially when you're putting a lot of energy into the shoe. And to me, in terms of shanks for not only super shoes, but just most running shoes, this is kind of been my favorite configuration. I think I've talked about this in previous Adidas running models. This has kind of been my favorite configuration for a while now. All right, but getting into the outsole tread, this is basically 2 pods of light traction, which basically just looks like 8-bit traction, right? It's just rectangular traction pattern. Then you do have a continental rubber kind of insert on the forefoot, and the durometer of the majority of the rubber, kind of the semi-translucent rubber, that comes in at an 8.25. That continental stamp pad comes in at a 13.5. So you can see which basket Adidas put most of their eggs in, that midfoot to forefoot strike. Real really coming hard down on that landing pad. And speaking of beefing up that forefoot, look at this thing on the outsole durability test, 10 seconds highest grit sandpaper. Yeah, I mean, the burr basically just levels off the light traction to the base of the tread. And then on the continental rubber stamped pad here on the forefoot, that stamp rubber, not even a millimeter of damage on that. So I think as long as you're using these in the right configuration, we'll talk about this, as long as your gait is correct. Honestly, the durability shouldn't be too bad in them. If you have a really bad pronatory twist, you're more of a heel striker, that's when you're gonna start to kind of burn through this rubber. But as long as you kind of stay within the guardrails of the shoe, honestly, they should be just fine. All right, but getting into the fit of the Adios Pro 4, this was pretty interesting. It only had a 12-degree inflare, which I mean, honestly, look at it, it doesn't look too aggressive. They are a hair long at 29.1 centimeters in length. I'm at a tarsal width of 9.4 centimeters, toe box width of 10.5 centimeters, and a toe box taper pretty standard at 28 degrees. Yeah, these were a little bit more forgiving. I'd say a narrow and medium foot. If you're narrow and short-footed, I would go down a half size on these to get the length reduction on them, better lockdown. A medium, I would say if you're true length or longer length, I'd just go true to size because they're pretty comfortable for a medium. If you're short, go down to half size. A 2E, I'd go true to size. A 4E, I would go true to size on these things. Just going up, they're gonna start to get a little bit long because of the length on them. But if you're, narrow medium, you actually, and like I said, you're not super long, you actually could get a little bit of a weight reduction performance boost from going down. I'd say for the snake bitten foot, and of course, if you're gonna put an orthotic in these, it better be a razor thin, more custom orthotic in them. But remember those energy rods really hold the shoe up really well. They hold the arch of the shoe up really well. These things are gonna offload the forefoot really well, especially for a super shoe. In terms of heel pain, in the super shoe category, I think they should be just fine. If you're someone that does wear orthotics with super shoes, you probably already have your own customs that you're used to, and you kind of know how to get them into these, and you've kind of dialed in that shape as well as that thickness of the shell. So you already know. But I'd say pretty much, like I said, in the super shoe category, these are pretty good for most things. All right, but getting into the performance and runnability of the Adidas Adios Pro 4, look at these things on the speed ratio. They come in at a 6. And then shank score of 0.5 brings up to a 6.5. These are the fastest shoes, except for one other. That is the Adidas Pro Evo 1. So yeah, I mean, these beat out every other super shoe on the market except for that one. And really, you can see why. In terms of strikers, you can heel strike in these. The only thing is the geometry of the midsole. It's not, I wouldn't say it's not meant for a heel striker. The gate that I really found that kind of nailed it for these was a distal midfoot strike. Obviously, forefoot strikers are fine for these, but that distal midfoot strike, you kind of land right in the sweet spot of that rocker, and it just feels like the shoe is literally propelling you. I mean, it feels like the assist you get on a lawnmower, right? Going up a hill, like when you engage the lawnmower. And you're gonna push one and it goes up. That's what it feels like when you get these in that distal midfoot strike. The shoe just kicks like a mule. It is crazy. So obviously the more energy you put into these, the more they're gonna give back to you. The more mileage you give these, the more they're gonna give back to you. Yeah, you can use them on shorter runs, but when you start getting higher and higher and higher in mileage, that's when you start to see the running economy in these things. And especially if you have pretty tuned, consistent gait, these are going to give you a pretty consistent energy return, right? That's what they're made for. They are made for consistent long mileage. And that's when they start really, helping you out more and more and more. And to me, it was really surprising how you can refine even kind of this design, which we've seen this kind of overall, design in Adidas super shoes for a while. And then on the 4s, just small tweaks. I say this a lot in my videos, but small tweaks make huge differences, especially for me in the comfort category. I know that super shoes aren't meant to be super comfortable, plush daily training shoes, but you can't understate the comfort difference in these versus others while still maintaining all the performance, if not exceeding. So love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below, especially if you've been kind of in the Adios line, or if you're coming from another super shoe line, or you given these a shot. Let me know in the comments down below. And if you want to see what I'm talking about, the only other shoe that beat this one out in the speed ratio test, the Adidas Pro Evo 1 going to the knife, make sure you click into this video up above and subscribe down below. Respect your rubber and foam. I'll see you somewhere in the sneakerverse.